All right, guys, so here is the nervous system review. I'm just going to go through these and you can pause it. They'll be animated, so if you are trying to think of what it is, just pause it as we move along. All right, so here we have this long portion here of the central nervous system. It's one of the two components on both sides here. So the name is the spinal cord. This is kind of an overall review here. You've got your, let's see if I can give you a little help here, cervical nerves here, your thoracic spinal nerves, your lumbar, and then down here will be the sacral. All right, so we're looking at the difference between the gray and white matter here. Remember, gray matter consists mostly of the neuron cell bodies, or soma. White matter is primarily the myelinated axons extending out of the soma, and these form connections between the brain cells. So here, this arrow should be pointing to the white. It's kind of on the green, but it's talking about the white portion, and this is talking about this bluish-gray portion here. So let's see if you know what those names are. White matter and gray matter, okay? And you can see here, you could also see this as this picture here where you can see the white matter, and this is the black arrow right here pointing to the gray matter. So if you see this picture, it's going to be the black arrow. And as you can see, it's not really gray in color here, it's brown, but this is, of course, this brain has been treated with chemicals. All right, so we're talking about these portions here. So you have to remember the name of the structure and the anatomical term, whether like it is dorsal or ventral. And so this is the dorsal horn, okay, dorsal horn. And when we're talking about these, you also have ramus and ganglions, okay? And so you'll need to know dorsal or ventral and whether it's horn, ramus, or ganglion. I think those are all the ones that are on here. All right, so still looking at gray matter here. So what is this portion right here? Okay, that is going to be the ventral horn, and it contains the cell bodies of motor neurons. And remember, the dorsal horn contains the cell bodies of sensory neurons. So this one is pointing to this group or cluster of cells here, okay? And so what is the anatomical term and the name? Dorsal root ganglion. Remember, gang is a cluster, so ganglion. All right, so this one over here is shaped like a ram's horn, so its name is dorsal ramus. It is on the dorsal side, and it is the ramus. Think dorsal like dorsal fin on a shark. Okay, so what's the name of this one here? This is also kind of shaped like a ram's horn, not as much as the one up top. Ventral ramus. All right, so now if we're looking at the meninges, these are really kind of hard to show on the models. I do have dura and pia mater on the sheep's brain, or maybe it's dura and arachnoid mater, sorry. And so remember DAP, dura mater outside, arachnoid mater middle, pia mater on the innermost layer here. So I'm pointing to this blue section, which is the outermost layer. So this is the dura mater. Very good. Here we're looking at the gray inside. So this is that center portion of the meninges. So it is the arachnoid mater, named because it is kind of spiderwebby looking. In this cream colored layer here, this represents the pia mater. This is one you're not really able to see on the sheep's brain, although thinking back, I think some of you said pia mater when it was really arachnoid mater, but it's really kind of how you separate between the two. And so on the sheep brain, you can't really tell the difference between the two because they're kind of stuck together. But on this model, it's a little easier. Never really easy, right? Not on this. All right, and so we also have some spaces, and this one is above. It means above, and it's the space between the dura mater and the vertebral wall. So this is the epidural space. Important because this is where you get your epidural, right? So on this one, the arrow is pointing kind of between the blue and the gray, which is really hard to show, okay? And so this is the subdural space. Okay, so this one is below. It's below a spiderweb-like material, so it is the subarachnoid space. And when I want spaces, I will tell you what is the well, if it's the meninges, I'll say what is the tissue or meninges, and if it's not, I'll say something that means space, so you'll know what I'm talking about. So this is a group of nerves we're looking at here, okay? And so this one, it's hard to kind of get that circle down small enough, but I'm talking about these nerves right here, okay? And right in here, you can kind of see this is talking about all of these right here and these up here. So what is this? What is the name? Well, this will be the cervical plexus, or you could say cervical nerves, but I really prefer plexus. Now, while we don't look at all of the individual nerves of the cervical plexus, this one is very important because this one helps to regulate breathing, and it's right here, okay? And so the name of this one is the, well, I got to get it to work, the phrenic nerve. All right, so I don't know why I don't have any good model pictures of this. I may just not have any good structures on the models. This one tends to go all over though. Do you remember the little secret I gave you for remembering that one? It's the vagus nerve, right? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but when we're talking about nerves, it goes everywhere. So it goes and it feeds all those internal organs. So here we have another group of nerves, okay? You can see this is the lower portion right here and extends on out through the arm. And you should know all 5 of the names of these individual nerves that make this group. But what is the group name here? The group name is the brachial plexus, the brachial plexus. And you'll notice cervical is near the cervical area, brachial is near the brachial area. They make sense. All right, so now we're going to break down that brachial plexus and look at one of these. This is kind of hard to show on some of the models. Some of them show well, but you can see this little pink one here is kind of going under the armpit. It's a hint. All right, and then on this model, it's over here, okay? And so this is the axillary nerve. All right, so here's another component of that brachial plexus, okay? Another component here. Which one is this one? Okay, right here. And you're going to have to pay really close attention. You can see this is the musculocutaneous. Look, it's going out here. I don't have my little, there we go. Going out here towards the skin, which is where cutaneous comes from. And it comes right here. On these APR images, you're going to have to count, go back up the root and see where it comes from to be very careful, okay? All right, so another portion of the brachial plexus here. All right, this one is going along the radius. You can see that's the radius bone there. So that should help you to name it. And then here it is over here on the APR. And remember, you got to be a little bit more careful. Trace it kind of back up. This is on this third one down here, okay? And really pay close attention to those. So which one is this? Radial nerve. So we can tell here APR shows the images that I'm showing you here are much more up here, but these nerves extend on down the arm, and so the wall flat man model that is in this picture here, these are a little further down the arm, and when we actually have the full Sendaver in class, you can kind of go through and trace it down through things. It makes it a little easier to identify. But this is just part of where we're at. This is going to be part of that brachial plexus. Which one is it? This is the median. This one, look, is going down the innermost middle portion of the arm. So it's really good to look at that here on this model. You can see it's in the middle, and here you can see it's kind of feeding off of 2 of the roots there, okay? Or trunks. All right, so one more here of the brachial plexus, okay? You can see that it is going down here alongside the ulna. Now notice this bone is crossed over, okay? In this arm, it's flat, so pay attention to which bone that is, okay? Ulna is going to be the pinky side, right? So if I rotate it, it rotates, but you can still see it's attached to that pinky side. It'd be real handy if ulna was by the thumb, because then that you could say it makes a U, but it doesn't. And so that's how I remember it. It's a rule breaker, okay? So what would this one be then? This is going to be the ulnar nerve. All right, so here we have a group of nerves here. you can see, and these, they're pink right here, they're a little harder to see. Here they're nice and yellow. These are going between the ribs. So the name of this means between the ribs. And so these are the intercostal. Okay, so remember, this can be broken down into two, and this one you can kind of cheat because the name's on here. You can break it down into the lumbar plexus right here, which is going to be in the lumbar region of your vertebrae, or in the sacral region, you could call it the sacral plexus. So what is the name of it together? Lumbosacral plexus. So here is just the lower portion, okay, and this one still has both on here. So again, you can kind of cheat on this picture. We've got lumbar and sacral. Well, this is coming off the what? Lumbar or sacral region? Lumbar plexus, okay. Now this one is named because it divides into two. You see how it splits right here? And so its name is derived from the two regions that it actually feeds, which is going to be the genitals and, excuse me, the femoral nerve. So the name is the genitofemoral. All right, so this is one of those that I told you to be really careful with, okay? This feeds off the femoral nerve off to the side, okay? And so it's smaller. It's kind of hard to see in this model on the left, but here on the right, it's small, but you can see it. It's going to feed off to the side, so it's the lateral femoral, and another way to remember it is cutaneous, although in these models, it's kind of hard to see that it's near the skin. All right, so this is one of those larger nerves here, okay? And so this goes on down through the leg, 41 over here on the leg models, which not very many of you picked up. I told you guys to study those models, all right? And so on this one, you can see the nerve coming off to the side, which is not numbered, would be the lateral femoral. So that would make with this one what? The femoral nerve. Okay, so here's another one that's really important to movement. It's related to abduction or adduction, I believe, okay? And so you can see it right here. It's labeled 20 in this picture. This one is nice and highlighted pink, and it's right here, okay? So this is the obturator. All right? And you really need to pay special attention to these because we didn't get to do much with these in the classroom. So it's kind of on you to learn these from APR, okay? When these are at the beginning or the base of something, we often call them a trunk, just like a tree trunk is the base and the wide, and then it splits off, okay? So the name of this one is lumbosacral trunk, okay? So it's near that lumbosacral plexus there. All right, and again, dividing these, you can see here we've got this plexus here. I'll give you half the name, this group. All right, I really like this APR image for this one, and we have one model that does a really good job of showing this. So this is the sacral plexus. So we have a few of these again in this lower portion of the body that are kind of hard to see in the models, and they're really best seen in APR. And these are important to the muscles of your behind, right? And so that's where part of their name comes from. So it's the superior gluteal. And if they're superior, that must mean there's probably an inferior gluteal, right? All right, so here you can see this right here was the superior gluteal, so this one is the inferior. Go. Inferior gluteal. All right, so here we have the largest nerve in your body, and we can see this in lots of our things. So here we've got this one extending, and it goes all the way down from up here. It actually crosses through the pelvis to the leg, and goes all the way down your leg, and it's very, very wide. Like I told you before, it's if I had the send over back, you could see it's wider than my thumb, okay? So second to the femoral, this is actually not second, this is the largest nerve in the body, and so it's number 63 here on this leg. What's the name of it? Sciatic nerve. I don't have any really good pictures of this one in any of the models that are that great, okay? But you can see it's down here. All right. So your posterior femoral. So be careful and remember when these split off, you have the femoral, okay, and then you have the posterior femoral and the lateral femoral. So be careful with those branches, okay. This is this one branching off. This is one I like to pick. It goes down the side and kind of has an interesting name, but it's a long one. It is often has the term greater in front of it, but sometimes it does not. I usually use the word greater. You can see it is in that leg muscle y'all didn't look at. Okay, so what is this one? This is the saphenous, or as I usually say, the greater saphenous, because it goes from the top all the way down to the side of the leg. There's another good APR image where it's like blue and it just goes all the way, you can see it goes all the way down. Would you looky there? There's two more of those leg models y'all didn't grab and look at. Okay, so here we're looking, and it kind of gives a giveaway here in the slide. You've got this one that goes alongside the tibia. Okay, so down here we have the tibial nerve. You can see it down here as well. Oh, there's your name. Well, you know, apparently some scientists just don't think anatomy is hard enough, and so they got to give us two names for things, okay? So this one kind of has two names here, and again, you can see here we are over here, and right here, and in here. Okay, so we have some different views here. So what's the name of this one? Peroneal or deep fibular, or peroneal nerve, okay? Or deep fibular, all right? All right, so this one is on the back side of the leg. You always pay attention here to what you're looking at, okay? Orient yourself because the location and where you're looking at gives you the name of this one. This is the posterior cutaneous, which you probably could have got from this picture here on the right, but it's kind of hard to tell by looking through here exactly which one this is, all right? Would you look at that? It's a leg model. Didn't I tell you how to do the leg models? I think I did. I know I did, actually. I'm just picking. Okay, but I am serious, too. All right, so you got three names here to pick on. Which one do you think this is? We are looking at number 43, this little one here on the side, all right? Common fibular, otherwise known as the peroneal. This might be repeated. Oh, well, if it is, it's okay. This one is near the skin, so it is superficial. It's the superficial fibular. All right, so enough of the lower extremity that we didn't really get to practice a lot, so you need to be sure and study those because we can't always get everything perfectly worked on in lab, even though I did harp on y'all to study those legs. Okay, I told y'all to get those models. All right, so now let's go on and look at the brain, one of my favorite parts. All right, so this is a 2-for-1er here. All right, we've got the convolutions here. Which one is which? I've got a way to help you remember it. What are the depressions or what are the raised portions? I'm not going to tell you until you get a chance to guess it. Well, the depressions are the sulci. They sink in, and the ridges are the gyri. They are giant, or they grow. I don't know, but the sulci sink. That's how I keep them straight. Okay, so we're going to look at Meninges again, and I want you to remember that DAP, and like I said, it's really kind of hard to show all of these, but you can see here in this picture, dura mater, arachnoid mater, see how it's open, looks like that spider web, and then pia mater. All right, and so it can be kind of difficult to separate those on an actual brain. All right, another 2-for-1. So what's this one here with the red arrow? Okay, and what's this one without the arrow? This is the outermost one, so it's the, I thought it was going to do the top. This one is the dura mater, and the bottom one is the arachnoid mater, okay? You could make an argument for pia mater, but really this is going to be more the arachnoid mater. So let's move on and look at the different lobes of the brain. All right, so here are 3 different views. You could get any one of these. Doesn't that make it fun? All right, so what is the major portion of the brain here? And that's what I'm kind of trying to show you, this big old arrow here from this brain model, which we do have in the lab, and I did tell you to study, in our sheep brain and APR. It's the, oh, come on, it's the cerebrum. Ta-da, there we go. It's the cerebrum. All right, so I'll usually ask this in this way, like, what is this portion or what is this lobe of the brain? Okay, I may actually say lobe, but sometimes I'll say portion. And so this would be the frontal lobe, okay, near the frontal bone. Reviews again, 3 in 1, gotta know them all. All right, so if you know one, you should know them all. You just have to be able to apply them, all right? But you do need to practice. So this is, I almost said it, this right here on the side of the brain. And I do this because when we learned it, we've actually made a little thing where we put our hands and put some kinesthetic movement in there, which is a really great way to learn. But this is the parietal lobe. All right, and so it's kind of easier to see some of these in some ways and figure out which is which. That's why I kind of like having this little outline on these sheep brains. So this is near the temples, and you can see that really easily on the bottom too, but the sheep brain's a little harder to tell. And it may not be near the temples on the sheep. I would have to actually look at the brain inside the head and think about that. It's probably still near it, but anyway, so the temporal lobe. All right, so this one, sorry, you can't. I'm going to cover up my mouth. This one is at the back of the head near the ridge that is also named after it. It's this little green portion here. It's the occipital lobe. All right, so here you got to name the region and what the feature is, okay? And so this is the groove going across. It's a depression going in. You can see it really good on this model. The name of it is the central sulcus. You could say sulci. I don't care if you get the singular or plural right at this point. If you give me sulci, I'm going to take that. Central, though, you got to tell me which one. So hopefully y'all remember your anatomical terminology from Anatomy 1. We had the central sulci. Well, this one is not the central sulci, but this on the side. So it's the lateral sulcus. Very good, if you're getting them right. All right, so this is one of the ones I see missed the most often. So let's make this the semester where you guys all get this one right, okay? So this little portion right here, you think island, and especially in this little sagittal view here, it looks like a little island, all right? And so that's this portion right here. So it is the insula island. Okay, so this is a little different than a sulci, but it's still a crevice, okay? And so we have to be specific, and so we give them different names based on size, and then again based on location. So you can see right here, it separates, okay? It's doing some separating, so this is the transverse fissure. It separates the cerebellum and the cerebrum. So this one actually... this one divides the hemispheres, okay, in this direction. So what is that anatomical term for the direction and the name of the feature? Longitudinal fissure. This one means tiny brain. So it's this little tiny brain under the big brain, okay? So it's this little portion, and it is called the cerebellum, and it really does mean little brain. All right, so what is the name of the white matter here in the cerebellum? Okay, it's a feature in the cerebellum. All right, it means tree of life. So it is the arbor vitae. All right, so here we have this sideways C-shaped structure. Sorry to say that really fast. This connects the two hemispheres. This is a very important portion of your brain. So get this one right. It's the corpus callosum. All right, so here's another one that can be kind of hard to differentiate, but really, I don't know, this one's not so bad. It kind of forms the bottom portion here of the corpus callosum, and it is sickle-shaped. So what is that term that means sickle-shaped? It's the fornix. I left this little overview in here. I took some of these out, but I decided later to go ahead and leave some of these in here. So you could pause this and review these and then practice them as we go through. All right, so this gland hangs down from this little stalk we call an infundibulum, and this is the portion of it here on our sheep brain. So the name of it is it's a gland, pituitary gland. To me, this is really one of the easier ones, okay? And so if I ask for the structure, not the nerve, if I ask for the structure, you're going to say it's the olfactory bulb. Now, what is the name of the nerve that you would find inside of there, okay? And so that's going to be on this brain model here or on the sheep brain. It'll be the olfactory nerve, right? I almost forgot to click and don't forget you got to know the Roman numerals and list them out at the end and tell me, are they sensory, motor, or both? All right, so below that is this X-shaped structure here we call the optic tract. Okay, I told you before, I even gave you a second, the optic tract, okay? And the optic nerve will pass through here. So the center portion of that tract that makes the center of the X there, we call that the optic chiasma. And you can see it in several views here when you're getting this lateral view here, when you're looking at it sliced through the middle from the side, it's a much harder, but you can still learn which one it is. You just got to figure out what bump is what. All right, so now what is the name of the nerve here? This nerve coming out of the optic tract here, coming out here, okay? So that's what I'm asking for the nerve. It's going to be I don't know why that picture's still there. Oh, so you can see it down here. You can see the optic nerve there. All right, so this particular nerve is teeny tiny in the brain model, so I have to really point that out. This helps to move your eye. Move your eye, so it is cranial nerve number 3, and so on old Olympus, oculomotor. All right, I really like the APR image of this nerve. If you look closely, you can kind of see it looks like 2 little hairs sticking out. It sticks out right here as well and here. So this is a pretty easy one to identify because it's kind of there by itself, okay? And so on old Olympus towering, T. So this is the 4th one. Well, if I can make myself work correctly here, this is the trochlear. Okay, so here, this one's a little bit thicker. It's a wider, flatter, shorter nerve. This one has, and it will extend, and it will have 3 different portions of it. Trigeminal. Okay, so this is another one of the ones that's a little easier to identify because it's kind of by itself. All right, here, and so we're looking at cranial nerve number 6. The abducens. All right, so this one you kind of have to pay attention to the order they go in because there's 2 or 3 kind of right next to each other here, okay? Cranial nerve number 7, it's the facial. All right, so this one is a little bit harder to tell, so you need to pay attention, okay, to where it's at, okay? So, because you got 2 that are really close by here. This one has 2 correct names. This can be the vestibulocochlear or the auditory cranial nerve. All right, so this is another one to pay close attention to. All right, it's related to the tongue. This is the glossopharyngeal. All right, so this is a tiny little guy, but he tends to go everywhere. This is the vagus. Now this one is not, for some reason, in this picture left colored red, but you can kind of see it right there, okay? It's right, I don't know if you can see my mouse, so it's right here. But this is one that often appears as several little ones, okay? Several little ones there. So that is the spinal accessory nerve. Now, this one also has a branched appearance, but it's much, much smaller looking. So there was the larger one and the smaller one. And you can see right here, it's right here as opposed to this one right here. Okay. Turn my little, there we go. Hypoglossal, below the tongue. All right, so here we have another gland type feature. You can see it right here. It's a little more obvious here, kind of harder to see on here, okay? So this is the thalamus. So this is kind of in front of and below the thalamus, right? In front of and below the thalamus. So what word means below? Hypothalamus. All right, so this one I always think peanut. It's a little tiny guy, looks like a little peanut. This is another gland, it's the pineal gland. All right, so this is a portion of the brain stem. I really kind of like this picture here on the left because this is the pons. Okay, this is the pons. I don't know how to explain why I like the fact that it's got these two rounded bumps, but that helps me remember it's the pons. All right, so first I'm going to point out here, and maybe the slide's just in the wrong position, but we've got the midbrain up here, okay? Got the midbrain, and then we had the pons, all right? And so what is the longer portion? The medulla oblongata. I wanted to make sure I pointed out the midbrain to you because that should have been first because that's the first component of the brainstem, and it may be that it just got left out, so I wanted to make sure you know where that's at. All right, now you want to be really careful to not mix this particular one up with the medulla oblongata, okay? The medulla oblongata is the wider portion, just a little bit wider portion. Once it narrows down, then it is the spinal cord, okay? Spinal cord. All right, so now I'm going to be looking at this region of space here, this opening, okay, where the star is or where this arrow is pointing. And I will usually try to word things like that as what is the opening, what is the space, or what is this feature. I try to distinguish it so you'll know I'm not like asking you for corpus callosum here. So this is going to be then a ventricle. So this is the lateral ventricle. And I should have said on the other one, that was one of the two lateral ventricles. So this is another ventricle here, okay? So which one is this? This is the third ventricle here. All right, and so lastly, this is the ventricle that goes kind of between the cerebellum and the brainstem there. So what is that region of space? Fourth ventricle. All right, so here we have the mammillary body, okay, this little small feature. All right, now we're on the last section, the special senses, okay? So we're looking at this portion of the eye. Which portion of the eye is this? Will be the cornea, the clear portion. All right, there's a few things that I can really only show you clearly on APR. And so this is what is the fluid here. And you have to be very careful to read the words because sometimes it's the fluid and sometimes it's the space. Okay, so one's going to be a humor and one's going to be a chamber. All right, so I'm asking you for the fluid that belongs in this space. Okay, so I want you to think about when you dissected your eye, what kept this rear portion here of the eye, the retina pushed up against it. That was the vitreous humor, right? And so then this must be the aqueous humor, the watery like humor. All right, so here we have this more jelly-like fluid, okay, this more jelly-like substance that fills this space in the posterior chamber here. What is that called? Vitreous humor. All right, so now we're looking at the white portion of the eye. There's three different pictures here. What is the name for the white portion of the eye? Sclera. So this one is kind of hard to differentiate in the actual dissection here, okay? You can see it's put it white here, and we're looking at this portion here, okay? So here we're looking at the ciliary body, and that's the more liney-looking thing. It looks like it's more striated. So pay close attention when you're looking at pictures of the sheep eye, because these structures in here, it's kind of hard to tell what's what, okay? All right, so what's the name of this front chamber here? Well, front is anterior, so anterior chamber. And the name for the chamber in the back is posterior chamber. All right, so here we're looking at this portion of the eye. Here, what goes on here, okay, usually is clear. That's the lens. All right, so here we're looking at this portion. This one is kind of hard to show. Remember, this is the one that looks kind of like saran wrap, and that's why I kind of, in a way, prefer the APR picture because they're highlighted in blue. It's the suspensory ligaments. And remember, when you pick it up, it's clear, so it's very hard to show. All right, so this yellowy looking membranous portion here that is attached at this optic disc here, okay, or the blind spot here. What is that called? That is the retina. This should be nice and easy. This is the portion that comes out the back of the eye, especially if you had a sheep eye and it was larger, you could tell. This is where all of the nerves converge, and so this is the optic nerve. All right, so this is the colored portion of your eye. It's this inner ring right here, the inner ring. So be real careful, okay? The inner ring. All right, that is the iris. I almost said lens. That is the iris. All right, so we didn't really look at the ear much except for in APR, but you're still responsible for knowing the structures of the ear, all right? So be sure to pay attention to these, okay? And so you can stop here and look and drill yourself on these if you have not already done so. All right, so the outside of your ear, what we think of as our ear, is the auricle or pinna. Okay, auricle or pinna. That's just this portion here. So I like this APR image because this model shows you everything. We're just talking about that point there that allows sound to focus in. Now you need to be very careful with these tubes because it is very easy to mix these up, okay? So this is the external portion of your ear and the internal portion of your ear, okay? So this is the external. It has to do with hearing, so acoustic. And then it's a meatus, okay? Sometimes called the auditory meatus, but you really need to differentiate and say external acoustic meatus because this is, even though it's not out here, this is the external portion of the ear. Now we have a few membranes, and this one didn't animate, but that's okay. And so the first membrane you're going to encounter here is going to be this tympanic membrane. That's going to receive the vibrations. Alrighty, so now you probably learned about these in elementary school as the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. Well, now we need to learn these with the correct scientific name. Okay, so this portion, it is a little harder to see here, so I put in the highlighted portion. This is the malleus, okay, the malleus, which would be kind of like the hammer. Next here, this is going to be like the anvil, and we call that the incus. This is the incus. Then lastly here we have the stirrup, okay? So the stirrup, so with malleus, incus, stapes. This is the stapes. This is another smaller membrane that we'll talk about in lecture. This is going to be the oval window, and you can see this is deeper in the inner ear. Now this is one I want you to be careful with. This is the eustachian tube or the auditory canal. This is in the inner ear over here, okay? This is in the inner ear. Sorry. So here we have this little blue highlighted portion here, okay? This is going to be, when we talk about this in lecture, this is the vestibule, okay? It's kind of like a little containing space. So now we're talking about a very important portion for hearing. This is going to be the cochlea, okay? The cochlea. So we had an oval window, so now on the cochlea, we're going to have the round window. All right, and we're going to talk about these three little portions here that are at different 90-degree angles. These are the semicircular canals. I didn't pull any of the APR slides on here, but you do need to know these. This is, of course, the tongue. We have taste buds, and then the larger ones are papillae, okay? And then we have the taste cell, which is going to be the gustatory cell. Gustation is taste. All right, and this slide just kind of shows you, and there's a good image of this in APR. You have your olfactory tract here with the olfactory bulb, and then those little olfactory nerves hanging out. They look like hairs almost. And that wraps it up for the review. Like I said, it may not be 100% comprehensive, but it's pretty close. It's taken me almost 45 minutes, I guess, to record. Recording wise, it's taking me longer to do it, but and so watch this and practice with this. This will really help prepare you for your exam.